Talking Sandhill Cranes with Rich Beilfuss and the International Crane Foundation.
Wildlife Federation's The Hide.
Welcome back, everyone. Mark Kakatsch and very special guest, Rich Beilfuss. Actually, I'm the special guest at your house, right? We're here today at the International Crane Foundation in Baraboo. And tell us about how ICF got started.
You bet. Yeah, welcome, Mark. Welcome to the Crane Foundation. So we've been around 51 years. We had our 50th anniversary last year, and we started back in 1973. One of our co-founders, George Archibald, had a big collection of cranes that he was studying for his PhD. And when he finished, he needed a place to put them. And he met Ron Sowie, who was our other co-founder, who happened to be from Baraboo here. His folks were from Baraboo here. And so that was kind of how it played up. They had a horse farm with some free land, and we moved the birds here. So we really started as a captive center here in Baraboo back in 1973. And then today we've grown, to a global conservation organization. So we work worldwide for these birds.
And when you say the birds, let's talk about them real quick before we get started with the topic for today. But here at the center, you have every species of crane worldwide for folks to come and view and actually watch, listen to, right?
Right. Yeah, they're pretty amazing birds. We've got 15 species of cranes from around the world. Everywhere that they occur in the wild, they are the biggest, most conspicuous bird out there, much like our whooping cranes and sandhill cranes here in Wisconsin. And they're amazing to watch. One of the things I really enjoy is seeing people just sitting out for hours at the Crane Foundation watching these birds. You can watch them feed in wetlands, snap dragonflies from the air, probe in the mud and kind of do their thing. And they're fascinating birds to watch. So, yeah.
So bringing it back locally, here in Wisconsin, we haven't had the presence of cranes that we do right now. I mean, we've had sandhills here and we've had whoopers, but not to the extent we have right now in regards to, in the last, let's say 50 years, right?
Right.
100 years.
Right. Well, whooping cranes were lost entirely. So they were lost from the state, I think in about the 1890s. So we went more than 100 years without whooping cranes. And then the birds that are here have been gradually reintroduced over about the last 25 years. So we've been very involved in that and bringing them back to the eastern part of the U.S. into Wisconsin. And then sandhill cranes have been on a huge comeback for about 100 plus years too. They didn't get as low as the whoopers. We didn't lose them, but they've been coming back steadily now, and very solid growth as we've seen, especially in the last 30, 40 years as the birds have become present all over the state again. Yeah.
Yeah. And where I come from, just south of Horicon, we used to talk about, man, do we have the geese? Right. And now it's, man, do we have the cranes, right? Every morning I get up at about 4:15 right now, and my natural alarm clock, I got, maybe a handful of Canada geese, but I probably have anywhere from 20 plus sandhills in the field next to the house bugling.
That's it. And if you go out for a hike almost anywhere in the state, certainly southern half of the state, you're likely to hear them flying over, or you'll hear them in a wetland nearby. So they're back in our lives. Almost everywhere. Yeah.
When you go to Horicon, again, it was always about Canada geese. Well, now it's, you see some Canada geese, but the sandhill population that has inhabited Horicon is significant, that surrounding area. But more importantly, what a fantastic comeback story for the whooper in Horicon area, right?
Yeah. Horicon's one of the great places to see them in the wild, Horicon and Neseda National Wildlife as well. And it hasn't been easy bringing the birds. Our motto is keep them wild in the first place, because once you lose them, it's a long slog to bring them back. But we have, bird by bird, been reintroducing them to the wild now since about 2000, and got about 80, 85 birds in the state. And we're trying to reach that ultimate goal of having the chicks of the birds we release in the wild produce their own chicks in the wild, and that the population becomes fully self-sustaining.
Have you seen the migration route change for the crane when they migrate south?
For the whooping crane?
Yep, for the whooping crane.
Yeah, it's a funny story. When we first started reintroducing them back in 2000, we were using the ultralight planes, and the crane, cost people, if you remember that story, but people would be wearing crane costumes, pilots, and then they would fly the birds south. And when we originally planned that route, we flew them all the way down to the coast of Florida because we assumed they would use the same habitat as whooping cranes in Texas, the wild ones that survived, which is a kind of a coastal area. So we figured we would do that. We'd fly them down there. And so they were flown 30 miles at a time, landing and sort of patchwork, little steps all the way down to Florida. No whooping crane has ever used that route again. So the first year, I think the birds flew back in about 3 days, took a different route, and ended up right back where we had started. So they homed in. We can learn so much about what these birds do and think by how they navigate and all. And they just shot right back here. They found it, but they picked their own way. And the birds have been migrating. They go to different areas now. They've developed multiple wintering sites in Alabama, Kentucky, Tennessee, parts of Georgia, even southern Illinois, Indiana. So they're finding their way. They're finding the habitat that they want. And they're becoming more and more wild. So we just need to improve the chick survival, and we'll get them fully back. So.
And I think obviously we're making a little bit of progress in that chick survival, but I think the dedication that ICF brings to the table for the whooper is key in its survival, as well as its future in regards to education for everyone, right?
Yeah. It's been a huge commitment in every way, getting the birds back out, helping people understand about the birds, how to live with them back in the wild. And we put a lot of focus on the original wild flock that winters down in Texas too, to make sure the original birds are well cared for and kept in the wild. But it's a big effort. We've had a lot of great partners. Of course, DNR here in Wisconsin, Fish and Wildlife, Operation Migration back when they were flying the ultralights and all. I think it's been a great partnership. But it's a long-term commitment anytime you set out trying to bring something back like that. Yeah.
Well, I think having both Sandhills and the whoopers on the landscape, it's a benefit for everyone. And I think the birding community here in Wisconsin has significantly benefited for the opportunity to view these birds. And I think, spending a lot of time in and around Horicon, my wife works for the department there. Mm-hmm. It is unique to see such an influx of folks in the fall looking for the whooper instead of for the goose. But, it's kind of like a scavenger hunt for these folks. They're driving everywhere. But also, I think it's a great shot in the arm for the economy, because those smaller communities around there, Waupun, Fox Lake, Horicon, they're looking for folks, Mayville, that benefit. One of our folks that we have on, Earl at the Natural Way in Mayville, he said specifically that the cranes have significantly brought him some customers, right? Yeah. Because of the birding piece. So fantastic on that.
Yeah, it's great. And, everywhere that the whoopers spend any time, little festivals have cropped up, all kinds of things. There's, they winter at Wheeler National Wildlife Refuge in Alabama. Now they have a festival for the cranes. They winter down at Hiawassee in Tennessee. They've developed a festival, and there's several. And people want to celebrate around the places where you can find them regularly. And Horicon's another one, just fantastic place to search them out. And then when you find them, of course, they're these enormous white birds. So they really stand out. But they're a lot of fun.
So switching gears back, coming back to the Sandhill, they're very compatible with the whooper, right? I mean, when you see a whooper, there's a good chance Sandhills are going to be closer, if not in the same field with them. And that is unique in itself, because people get to see both.
Yep. Now they are often together. They winter together on their grounds. Their breeding grounds are interspersed up here in this part of the state. And
Do you feel that helps in their survivability, being together?
I think in some way they're very territorial birds, and whoopers will chase sandhills away that are too close. So there's kind of a love-hate relationship, but they do often migrate together, and they're exploiting a lot of the same habitat. They love the wetlands. They use farm wetlands and other bigger wetlands like Horicon and all. So they're often kind of moving in the same spaces, and sometimes whoopers are a little feisty and chase them away, but they can breed in the same bigger wetlands. They'll breed in the same wetlands too. So.
in the Sandhills in the state, I mean, obviously we face, some issues with them, especially in agricultural aspects. But that community is trying to find ways to deal with them. And, the Sandhill really has come on the stage in numbers no one really anticipated either. I mean, it seemed like one day you said, wow, I think I saw a sandhill crane today. And then literally next year, you're saying, I just saw 1,000 sandhill cranes today.
It's an amazing recovery. When I started working at the Crane Foundation, I had never seen a sandhill in the wild, definitely not in Wisconsin. And so, I think today now, if I drive up to, drive anywhere in the state really, but even around my home, there's thousands around. It's such a change. It's a profound change. It's what the geese went through much earlier.
Oh, absolutely.
But, it's fantastic. And I think people just so enjoy seeing, they're in the city parks of Madison. They're around, they've really come in and gotten comfortable with people everywhere, and people love it, So,
well, they're like turkeys in the city. I mean,
right.
My mom calls and she lives in Bayview in Milwaukee, and she's like, oh my God, I had a blue heron at Humboldt Park. And then like 20 minutes later, I just got a picture on Facebook. They got sandhill cranes at Humboldt Park. I'm like, really, Mom? Wow, that's fantastic. Yeah, okay. But the point is they are everywhere. They are on the footprint. They're in subdivisions. They're in agricultural areas. They're in business parks. And I think that is a testament to conservation as a whole, that we were able to bring the sandhill back and have a significant presence in that landscape of conservation.
Yeah, I mean, in my view, it's one of the great success stories of the last 100 years. We talk about bald eagles coming back, or peregrine falcons, or different species, turkeys coming back. But the Sandhill is a fantastic story. We talk a lot about Aldo Leopold, the author, and all the beautiful conservation things he wrote. And he wrote about the last sandhill crane in Wisconsin, right? Or the possibility of that, the Marshland elegy. And we've come a long time since then.
Before I came here today, I had to stop at the Aldo Leopold Foundation, and they're celebrating still the 75th anniversary and selling the Sand County Almanac. And I think, like you say, Aldo Leopold had a profound presence here in Wisconsin, conservation, as well as conservation education at the university. So I think Wisconsin has a long and rich history and in conservation. So Aldo Leopold, the sandhill crane, we all play a role in that. And to think that where we were 10, 15, 20 years ago to where we're at right now is almost incomprehensible.
Yeah, it's very exciting. And it's a wonderful tribute to the state, I think, efforts statewide. Yep.
Well, I think when we come back and revisit this, I think it'll be a great opportunity maybe to take a look at, cranes in the United States and how they differ from East Coast to West Coast, from, the Canada, Mexico, because I think there's distinct and significant differences. So maybe on our next visit, we can cover, cranes continentally.
Sure. Yeah. Happy to do that.
Well, Rich, thank you so much for taking time out of your day here at the International Crane Foundation, Wisconsin Wildlife Federation, and the Hyde. We definitely appreciate it. And hopefully the folks viewing appreciate it, but find some time this summer to come out and visit the International Crane Foundation. And in the fall, before we leave, you have a festival.
We have a festival. Well, we're open. Our foundation is open through October normally, and I hope you'll come visit us and see all our birds on display. But in the fall, we celebrate the wild sandhill cranes. Those numbers start picking up October and then into November, and they actually peak in November, December. So we pushed our festival a little bit back into the fall, and we do it first or second week in November. And it's a great gathering. Celebrate these birds in the wild. You'll see 5,000 to 10,000 in our area. See them flying in on the Wisconsin River roost sites, and it's a wonderful experience. So
not only that, it's an easy day. It's it's a nice drive no matter where you're coming from. There's enough places around that you can pick up a lot of merchandise as well to celebrate that. But it's a great day to spend here at the center and view every species, as well as take a look at the sandhills in the fields around.
Yeah. Do join us.
Yeah. Thanks again, Rich. Thanks again, Chase Baker, the man behind the camera, and appreciate all the extra effort that you do for conservation. Thanks everyone for watching. Talk to you soon. Take care.